Hey, what's up, everybody? My name is Jeremy Schumacher. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist. I'm the Jer in Wellness with Jer. Thanks for stopping by and checking out the channel. We're going to talk mental health in pop culture. We're going to talk about sports. So this is a thing that I've been involved in for most of my life. I guess I'll say pretty passionate about. I have background as an athlete. I've coached and played at the collegiate level. So the director of student athlete mental wellness at the collegiate level. So yeah, I've been around a lot of athletes. Again, growing up playing baseball, transitioned to volleyball after having a shoulder injury, and was a walk on at the University of Minnesota to play volleyball, where I rode the bench. Didn't know what I was doing. I had a cannon of an arm and was tall and lanky, but not tall enough to be good, especially as a second sport that I was playing. But I was around great players. I was around people who went pro. Coaching a number of All-Americans, a couple trips to the NCAA tournament, several conference championships. So, I feel like I have a good read on athletics. I've done mental health with Olympians. I've done mental health work with conference winning teams, individual winning athletes, and like kids who get cut, people who are riding the bench, people who want to make the team next year. So a wide breadth of experience here, even if sports psychology is not a thing I focus on currently in my practice. A lot of background in working with it, both lived experience and also from that mental health perspective. So we're going to talk about a show I just caught up on. I am notoriously late on watching things. Star Wars fans, I'll get around to Andor season 2, expecting it to be great. Like, I think that's out right now. I think that's season finale just came out. So yeah, I don't even remember when the last season of Shoresy wrapped, but I'm behind things. Shoresy is on Hulu here in the States, which is where I was watching it. And it's a spinoff of Letterkenny, which it's from like Crave Media, which I think is a Canadian company. Don't quote me on that. And again, Hulu carries it here in the States. So Jared Kiso is sort of the main creative force behind this, and then there's a bunch of recurring characters. Shoresy is very much about small town hockey. It is a love letter from the people working on the show to hockey, especially Canadian hockey, especially small town Canadian hockey. And it's really good, honestly. As a comedy, it's very funny. I think probably Letterkenny is, I don't know. I would say Letterkenny is maybe the more enjoyable show overall, just because I think Shoresy is such a niche target. Like, you don't have to like hockey to appreciate Shoresy, but I think you need to like sports to like Shoresy. Whereas Letterkenny is about like small town life in Canada, but there's so much that people can relate to. I'm from a second tier city in the States. I'm from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. About 1 million people, including the suburbs. And so, like, not a small town person at all. I'm a city slicker, and Letterkenny is very approachable. I think Shoresy, part of my enjoyment of Shoresy is working with a lot of hockey players over the years, recognizing a lot of like the rhythms and flows of things like a locker room, of banter between athletes and stuff like that. So Shoresy is the titular character, and we're introduced to Shoresy again in Letterkenny. So Shoresy is never seen on screen in Letterkenny. He's always insulting people from off screen, or we can't see his face because Jared Kiso plays Wayne in Letterkenny, one of the main characters there, and so it can't see that Shoresy is also Jared Kiso. A thing they just ignore in Shoresy entirely, which is kind of wonderful. And so we only ever see Shoresy chirping, which is sort of like talking trash. A lot of sports have their own lingo, their own terminology. Hockey's chirping, baseball, we call it chatter, or at least we did when I played. You have chatter from the bench and you have chatter out on the field. I was an aggressive trash talker because I think it was fun. I was a pitcher, so you don't do any trash talking then. But I also played center field and shortstop when I was much younger. But like definitely playing in the outfield, you get bored and you got to do something. So you're calling out the batter, you're calling out the other team, you're making fun of the umpire, you're making fun of your teammates, whatever. Like you're just sort of talking the whole time to stay invested in the game. I have ADHD. It was undiagnosed at the time that I was playing. So I think a lot of it was that, and it's fun, right? And so coaching volleyball, you have all these cheers. You have ace cheers. You have other cheers. You have timeout cheers. You have ref calling a certain foul or a certain stoppage of play gets cheers, and like it's fun. Again, it keeps people who are maybe not actively in the game invested. It gets the crowd pumped. There's roles for players who are like going to come in as a sub or are like that sort of spark plug spark plug player. They go in when someone goes down or someone gets injured or we need like that jolt, and they're like, pumped up. And then because they do all the cheers with everybody on the bench, then when they finally get to go in, everybody's stoked and so excited for them. So it's like a really uplifting thing. So like again, like you can see how I'm talking about it. Like I think sports are very cool. I think there's a lot of fun psychology that goes into sports. And I think Shoresy just does a really good job capturing that. Again, I don't think you could watch Shoresy and say, like, this was made by somebody who's never played hockey. Like, you can tell this is from like that first person perspective of like, this is somebody who gets what hockey is all about. And I think Shoresy is, I titled the video as one of the all-time great sports shows. Like, I think it is because I think it tries to encapsulate a player at the end of their playing career, which is fascinating. And so many shows or movies or other forms of media about sports do this in like this big dramatic thing. And like it's not, for most athletes, they go out past their prime and not winning a championship. Like that's such a rarity to go out on top. That's the dream. Tom Brady had it and then came out of retirement and didn't have it, right? Like, like it's such a fleeting thing because when you're on top, you want to run it back, right? And so there's a history of concussions with Shoresy, and he's going to have to hang it up. And so there's 4 seasons. Spoilers ahead. Where we're at in season 4 is Shoresy has to transition, and he doesn't want to coach, and everybody else wants him to coach, and everyone else sees that. And I think experiencing this myself, it's such an obvious transition, especially when you're not the superstar player. I'm of the opinion that I think the best player on the team or the best player in their league, in their competitive sphere, is rarely going to be the best coach. You might think because of the level of success they attain, because they know what it takes, that they're really good fit, but like they're not. Like Michael Jordan, Larry Bird, Kobe, like a lot of these people did not make great coaches or managers because like the thing that made them great players was their personal drive, and like that's not a thing that you can coach. It's one of those intangibles we talk about in sports, and we do that too much. A lot of what we think of as intangibles are things that people can practice and get better at. Um, Maniacal drive to the point of being an asshole to the rest of your team and being an unlikable person is not a thing you can coach. And so, like a lot of those people who are great players do not make good coaches because they have a hard time understanding or looking at how everything else, how a team operates, because they have the perspective of being the best player. They have the perspective of if I put in enough effort into this thing, we will prevail. And that's not what happens in coaching. Coaching is a ton of different variables that you're trying to account for and manage and like nudge to your advantage against a different team that has all those variables also operating at the same time. And so coaching is a much different challenge than playing. One of the things that is in Shoresy, I'm curious. I don't know if Jared Kiso is coached or not, so I'm curious if he plays that coaching role in future seasons, how accurate that will be. But you can tell he played hockey because he gets so much of like the locker room right. And one of the things that I love in the early seasons that they really hammer is like there are players who love to win, and like Shoresy is like deeply skeptical of this concept that like because winning is easy and therefore everybody likes it. Good to great players hate to lose. And that was one of the things that I really struggled with when I was coaching because I was that player who hated to lose. I could have a good game personally, and if we lost, it was a bummer. Um, Also, if we won and I had a bad game, also a bummer. I was that player. But yeah, like everybody likes winning. Winning is fun. And then when I was coaching, I had players who didn't hate to lose, and that was like weird for me. Especially coaching, I coach women's volleyball, so having players who are more concerned about the team getting along, having supporting their friends, being supported by their friends. These were dynamics that I was not familiar with. And again, late stage diagnosis ADHD, late stage diagnosis autistic. So like, hey, some of those dynamics were probably there for me in sports and missing some of those team dynamics and social things. But also, I just hated to lose. Like I was a deeply competitive person. That's the way I was raised. I was the youngest of four kids. I was always in competition with my siblings. Um, and so like competition just was a really big motivator for me. Again, with undiagnosed ADHD through my growing up years, like competing with other people is what got me to motivated to do things like homework. I wanted to get done fastest and get the best grade. I want and like being done fastest was really the key there. And a lot of that was built on my natural skill set, right? Like I have very fast processing speed. Around sports, I was always like a very gifted athlete. Random sports come easily to me. You want to throw darts, you want to teach me a brand new game I've never heard of, you want to whatever. Like I'm deeply uncoordinated as somebody who's 6'3" and kind of lanky, moving around a house and not running into a coffee table, but I'm pretty coordinated if you tell me there's a scoreboard involved. So I picked up a lot of that stuff really easily. But again, like a lot of those team dynamics and some of that cultural stuff varies from sport to sport and varies from team to team. And I think that's like Shoresy just does such a good job on like the culture of a team. They're this local hockey team that hasn't won, so they're going to close the club down. And Shoresy's not ready to be done playing, so he needs to save the club. So he makes this bet: we're never going to lose again. And this is probably the plot line that is the least realistic about this whole thing. Um, it's a little like this the fantastical nature of a sports documentary or a sports show is like we gotta tell the winning story. Whatever, Cool Runnings is a classic that isn't accurate at all, and they lose. Um, Tiny tangent here. Sports movies are so weird. They're so bad. I don't think there's one that's like actually really good from top to bottom. That's like accurate and fun to watch. Because sports are such a unique experiential thing. Like you gotta be there for it. So anyway, Shoresy, they're not gonna lose again. And so he has to change the whole team makeup to do this. They fire the coach, get a different coach in. They actually put the coach in at goalie because he was a former player and he's a terrible coach, but a really great goalie. Again, great players do not necessarily make good coaches. And they have to recruit a bunch of like veterans because they need to be tougher, which is like a little like eye rolling around hockey machismo stuff. But also like that balance between new upcoming players and like consistent people who can like step up to the moment, who have been there before. So they recruit some from former NHL players and some like enforcers to the team. And it's that again, I think is like accurate how you want to build a team. We can talk about like the Dallas Mavericks in real life here, and like Nico Harrison trading generational star and mega star Luka Doncic because he wants defense. Like this is somebody who doesn't know sports very well. I get that he's making millions of dollars as a GM, and I am not. Um, but like, no, there are coaches. Bill Belichick from the New England Patriots did you my way or the highway coaching. And I think that worked in like the 80s and 90s and 2000s. And he's also probably one of the most horrific cheaters of all time. So fuck off, Patriot fans. Um, the new school and understanding human psychology a lot better is you adapt your coaching strategy to the players you have on your team. And so putting as many players as you can in an environment where they can be successful is really what you need to be doing as a coach. And some of that is getting the players in that you need, so recruiting the right type of players or bringing them in. And so, like Shoresy again does this nice, I think, realistic look at like, here's the players we have. Let's play to their strengths, and here are the weaknesses on our team. Rather than trying to mold players to solve those weaknesses, we need some players to address that. And I think that's realistic. Again, like it's what makes sports so compelling, even though it's a silly game that's made up about a ball or a puck or whatever equipment involved and how you score points. It's all very arbitrary and it's all very silly, and it should not be billion-dollar industries. And it's such a human experience to like want your team to win, to find community in that aspect and all that stuff. Um, and so anyway, they go on like a win streak and whatever. Again, I think that's the weakest plot line. But the community comes together, the team starts to gel. Uh, it's a lot of fun. But I think the most impressive part of the show are like sort of the in-between sequences. It's not, oh look, they have actual real life NHL players in the show, and so the hockey scenes are really good and accurate. Or it's not like the excitement of maybe for like other people like, oh, hooray, the team I like won a championship. The Sudbury Blueberry Bulldogs. Uh, cool logo. I love the sky blue. Uh, I'm drawing a blank on the hockey terminology for uniforms. Sweaters. I love the sky blue sweaters they end up getting. There's a lot of good, like accurate, like very funny humor that isn't sports based. But like it's the in between scenes on like what's the team doing while they're traveling together, the locker room talks, um, some of the personality traits for the teammates, but also then like good comedy around like the running gags between some of the teammates. Um, Goody says every like food item is unbelievable. He just likes to eat, and it's one of the more quoted things in the house and in my house. Whatever noun we're talking about is sticks are unbelievable. He just is like such a deadpan delivery. A former NHL player plays that role in the show, and like so again, I think it's people who again you get enough of those folks who don't need to be trained actors but understand hockey and like yeah, let's reenact the scene. Here's what happens after a tough loss, or here's what happens after this unexpected player that we all dunk on all the time and is not our go-to guy steps up and wins the game for us, and this is how we celebrate for him. Like those guys who've been in that locker room, those athletes who've actually lived that, understand like this is how that actually looks. So the show just does such a nice job of that. Obviously, I think like the chirping is really good. Again, it's one of the more fun things in sports. I think like trash talk is very fun. Again, as the not great player, but like on great teams or next to great players, I've always sort of been that person who's like, I was the person who would guard the best kid on the other team. Because if I fouled out, it wasn't as detrimental as the best player. I was good enough to guard the best kid on the other team, but not like we couldn't afford to lose me. Um, but yeah, so like especially like playing basketball or some of the sports that I wasn't as good at, soccer, my trash talk went way up because it was like I had a psychological advantage over people. Um, I was not a good basketball player. I didn't grow until I never hit a growth spurt. It just sort of kept growing past when other people had already finished growing, and suddenly I wasn't 5'10", I was 6'3". But that didn't happen until later in my life. Not like I was a late bloomer. I just am much bigger than everyone in my family. So and that's Shoresy, right? Like he's a dirty player. He's the dirtiest player on the ice because he's not the best player on the ice. But this is his role. He gets in people's heads. He gets under their skin. He'll take a 2-minute penalty because it's not as detrimental to his team as getting the other team's best player to also get penalized with him. And again, like I think anyone who's been on a team sport knows that player. We hate playing against them, and we absolutely love having them on the team. A Dennis Rodman type, right, from the Bulls championship runs, like this tenacious player who maybe doesn't have all the skills, but they are obnoxious and they're gonna go all the time and they never ever shut up. Um, So yeah, like Shoresy is again, it's not let's take this sports show and follow the best player in the game. It's let's follow this player who like loves the game and hates losing and isn't the best player. And like I think that makes for a better dynamic. Steve Kerr is my favorite example of a lot of the stuff that I talk about. Like again, um, this guy who's incredibly talented, growing up, probably the best player on all of his teams. But you hit a point in like competitive play, whether that's travel ball or that's college, where you aren't the best player anymore. Um, and you go to the NBA and you're a role player then. And so I think as a role player, you understand all these different pieces on the team have to operate well together. And when you do your role well, when you come in and you hit that last second three or you make those free throws at the end of the game, that's important. Not lighting up the stat sheet, not running up the scoreboard every night. And so I think players like that, Tyronn Lue, I know a lot of this about the NBA, and I'm not like a big basketball guy. But I think those examples are really clear. It's like those were greatness adjacent players. They're very good players in their own right. They made the professional sports league. And they weren't the superstars, but they won championships. They were around superstars. They just understand how all the pieces fit together better. Free advice to all the GMs out there making a lot more money than I am. Get the role players as coaches. They're better at this. And again, like Shoresy just gets that. Shoresy does some also like really cool stuff. I think Shoresy has a lot of Indigenous and First Nations actors or former athletes in the show. The GM for the club is female, and so again, the show does a nice job of putting like females on equal footing. There's some like even jabs at some of the like misogynistic or like short-sighted dude ideas that Shoresy has about like hockey versus men's hockey versus women's hockey. Um, so again, like the show pokes some fun at some of the like machismo, but also like has some of the machismo. Um, I think the show is a bridge maybe on like Ted Lasso. I haven't watched end to end, and I have some opinions on like could a good coach in one sport go coach another sport and be successful? And like the answer on that very much depends on the support staff they have on their coaching staff. Because you need people who know what they're doing. You can't just be a good motivator. You can't just be good with people and get a team to win. That's never going to happen. But I think some of that like suspension of disbelief with the Ted Lasso stuff, and Ted Lasso is just so overly feel good that I think like Shoresy is more realistic than that. Um, Again, that little bit of like this team is at the bottom of the league and they come on a comeback. Like that stuff happens. I'm not saying it doesn't. I'm just saying it obviously feels forced as a plot point for the show. It's a fictional show, so it can. But also, all the drivers that get a team to go on a run, other than like illegal sports betting and in the NBA, Scott Foster, you know, the Mavericks just won the number one pick in the NBA draft. Like there's some level of sports are rigged, right? Like that's not even conspiratorial anymore. We know it for sure. It definitively happened in the NBA. And yeah, that refs call stuff to like keep the game going and let some stuff go, depending on what it is. It's why the last 2 minutes of a game take longer. You ref differently against superstar players versus scrubs. You ref differently in the last 2 minutes of a playoff game than you do the rest of the game, which is like stupid and horrifying. And we hate that as athletes and coaches. And also, like, that's what ESPN and ABC and NBC and whoever's broadcasting the sports want. They want the viewership, they want the drama. Blowouts do not hold the attention, the fan base very well. And sports betting being huge business right now is a major problem we are ill prepared for as a society, both for when it inevitably comes out that both athletes or coaches, but more importantly, the refs are making money off sports betting, and or owners and the league people are making money off of it. And we're, from a mental health perspective, very ill prepared for all the people who are going to lose money and have gambling addictions. We cleaned it up for a while as a society, and we brought it back. Capitalism at its finest. But no, Shoresy's really interesting. I really like season 4 because it's Shoresy coming off the championship win, sort of basking in that championship glow, and also he's needing to retire. and working with college athletes. Again, I was the director of student athlete mental wellness. I had about 800 student athletes at the college I was at, which is a lot. And one of the harder things from a mental health perspective is not just mental toughness, grit. The hardest things that I saw are athletes grappling with like, this is the end of their competitive career. I'm 36, I still play volleyball, but like nothing's going to top nationals when I was at Minnesota, right? Like that was the peak of my career. That's the best volleyball I've ever seen. It's the best volleyball I've ever been around. Um, and I'm never going back to that point. I'm probably obviously less athletic than I was when I played then because I could jump higher and dunk and do a lot of things I can't do anymore. I'm much craftier and smarter player now. I think coaching makes you a better player because you see the game differently. Um, but yeah, Shoresy's grappling with like, I'm really done. He's probably already dealt with, I'm not at the level I used to be. But like, it's different to then be done playing. And so having to give up your sport because of an injury is a very unique thing. I walked away from baseball partially because I had really bad coaching, but mainly because I had an injury and was going to need to get surgery. I'd been playing through pain for a number of seasons. Um, and like that contributed to not having a lot of fun and then have a bad team dynamic and a bad coach who makes that team dynamic worse. And like I walked away from it pretty comfortably, but like after years of not enjoying the sport that I had loved and like built a lot of my life around. And that's really sad. And I think my experience is one of many that are possible for athletes who have injuries and have to walk away. I was also young enough where I pivoted to another sport then and played at a high level. So like that's not available to everybody. When you're a senior in college and you're playing, that there is no pro or like you're not going pro. Um, there is no next level for the sport, and you tear your ACL, like you're not coming back to play college ball and spend money on college, a fifth year of school when you're done with your degree and you need to go to grad school or whatever. It's like you're just done, and that sucks. Shoresy has a concussion. It's a long line of concussions in his career, and he's got to hang it up. And like it's abrupt sometimes. Sometimes you see the writing on the wall, and sometimes you don't get any time. And like that's so hard for so many athletes. Their entire life, their community, their identity has been built on being an athlete. And when that goes, your world falls apart. Like that's not, I'm not being metaphorical in that. Like that's literally what happens. All that you know, all you feel connected to, all that you have felt is important in your life is gone. And like, I don't love that, right? Like, I don't think we should hold sports in such high regard. They are fun little games we play. They highlight, I think, a lot of the human experience and give us actionable items to do with them because of the structure of sport. Um, Silly little games, they're recreation. They should be for fun. And that's coming from somebody who hates to lose. Look at me, I've matured. But it's this idea of like, yeah, the way we do competitive club sports here in America is a problem. A, we're seeing way too many repetitive movement injuries too early in players' careers. B, we do not have a handle on concussions in sports world at all. Um, and C, we have players who are burning out before they're ever approaching their peak, right? So I started after I played in college. I went to grad school, took a break from things, and then I got recruited to coach, right? Because like that's what you do. And so when I started coaching club, I was coaching 14, 15. I coached 14, 15, 16, 17, and 18-year-olds. And then I also I coached club for a lot of years before I coached the college level. And then obviously college, 18 to 22-year-olds. And so, yeah, those like sophomores, juniors in high school who are going to quit playing their sport that they love and they're talented at because they hate their high school coach or there's politics or whatever. It's just really sad and also like pretty horrific to see some of the injuries that people play. I'm a big proponent of like let your kid play multiple sports. Off seasons are really important. I had ADHD. My parents kept me in stuff all the time. That was for my benefit. I'm a happier, healthier person when I have a lot going on. So it's one of those things where like there's a balance and every kid is different. But like from a repetitive movement perspective, switching up sports from season to season is good for your body. Although I'm like, yo, watching people play basketball has gotta be bad for your ACLs, contact sports. I'm skeptical of. Go watch and support volleyball. It's the most exciting sport out there. I'm biased. There's a point one. Every single play matters. It's super exciting. These athletes are super talented. It's very fast paced. There are shoulder injuries and definitely lower body injuries, but they're non-contact, which in a way is horrific when you're familiar with like an ACL tear. But also, it's not that like cringe-inducing yucky stuff. There are some like bad hits. People get hit in the face and stuff. A number of concussions related to me from playing volleyball. Um, some of them were not my fault. Most of them were not my fault. Um, but yeah, I don't know. Shoresy does a good job of sort of like it's a love letter. It's a love letter to hockey, but it's a really accurate love letter to sports in general. If people like Deadpool, and I think there are issues, Deadpool 3, Deadpool and Wolverine, there are issues with that movie as a movie. And if you view it as a love letter to 20th century, the movie studio that let Deadpool be a thing in the first place, the movie is a lot better because you're like, oh, they're doing that because it's nice. And I think that's a lot of like where I see maybe Shoresy's flaws or shortcomings as a show is like, well, because like that's real hockey or that's real sports, and like that makes sense. Um, I love the chatter. Again, I've worked with a ton of hockey athletes over the year, and like they're fun. A lot of them are lovable idiots. But hockey players often play juniors, so they'll play competitive for like 2 to 4 years, and then they'll go to college. They're usually a little older when they get to college. And I didn't love the machismo in hockey, but like they wouldn't come to see me for therapy, right? So we'd have a gab because that's what we just came in and we had a gab. And like that's a very Canadian slang thing, but also like that's what all the hockey players said. I love working with athletes. I always call me coach. I'm not a therapist in that setting. I was coach, I was the mental wellness coach. And we were doing therapy and we were doing sports psychology, but it's fun. It's interesting to do things where you can be really focused on performance and team dynamics and personal performance and all this goal setting and all these other things you do to really try and maximize your performance. And then you're stressed about breakups. You're stressed about someone back home is sick. You're stressed about your roommate, substance use. Like there's still real life that happens. Um, and like as somebody who loves sports and thinks they're silly and should be recreational, Shoresy was just a really good show to be like, yeah, this show was made by people who also love sports and get what it's about. And so it's a really good show. I highly recommend it. I recommend Letterkenny too, obviously. I think it's just a better show. It's the less niche show. Shoresy is like, yeah, if you like sports, you like Shoresy because it's about sports. It's really good. You don't need to like hockey specifically. Letterkenny's very funny. Although I will say, my wife's a former athlete too. Like both of us played college sports. Um, we're both still athletes. Now, we're both past our prime, but still both play. And Shoresy is probably the thing we quote more. Although Letterkenny also has hockey players. Again, Shoresy is in Letterkenny, and Riley and Jonesy are sort of the dumbass, somewhat stereotypical jocks who play hockey who are idiots, and like lovable idiots. And so my wife and I have two boys, and so hockey players refer to their teammates as the boys. And so Riley and Jonesy always say Ferda, which is their shorthand for the boys, for the boys. Um, I told myself before I hit record to not do any Canadian accents because it's too close to Wisconsin, so I really can't do it because it just ends up being up north Wisconsin, which is yeah, right next to Canada. That's not wrong. It's just hard to differentiate the accent. Anyways, Riley and Jonesy are hockey players in the show, which is where Shoresy comes in because he's always making fun of Riley and Jonesy's, specifically mothers that Shoresy's sleeping with. It's very funny. Riley and Jonesy are very funny. So a lot of the hockey stuff pops up. I think Letterkenny was born from Riley and Jonesy and Jared Kiso. I don't know. Sorry, I don't have the Riley and Jonesy actors off the top of my head. doing like shorts on the internet and like hockey interview, like making fun of post game interviews, and those are very funny and worth tracking down. And that sort of brought the whole show about. So Letterkenny is very good. Shoresy's top tier sports entertainment. Uh, but yeah, all that stuff. I mean, Letterkenny is very quick witted. As somebody who loves Arrested Development, somebody who really liked Archer, that type of humor is definitely present in Letterkenny. They have some of the best cold opens in all of media. Um, and I don't know, it was like season 12 or 13 that they finally wrapped it up. That's probably too many. Um, like just some really great performances. Very, 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 very quotable show. Very funny, very quick witted. Um, and like super bingeable. Both Shoresy and Letterkenny are very bingeable. So if you're a fan of that, you want those half-hour quick hitter comedies that you can watch and really enjoy. Strong recommend for the Letterkenny and Shoresy crowd. You'll probably watch Shoresy as soon as he appears in Letterkenny. Like I don't think you need to watch. They're separate shows. You don't need to know anything about the other one to enjoy either of them. Letterkenny also has some like pretty good stuff for religious drama, at least in the first season. Glenn's a pastor. He doesn't stay a pastor for very good reasons. Uh, so yeah, that's my strong recommend. I like reviewed this video was long enough. I reviewed a like list of the best sports movies and shows, and it was like Rudy, Remember the Titans. Like, no, those are garbage. People who've played real sports will tell you those movies are garbage, unless you're like a Notre Dame fan and you love Rudy for that only reason. I'm a big Sean Astin fan, and I don't like Rudy. Again, like too many sports shows, too many sports movies get the sports all wrong. I don't think there's a good volleyball performance ever that I've seen. I think there's an anime that is about volleyball. It's supposed to be pretty good, but I haven't watched it. So yeah, I don't know. Lots of bad baseball movies. There's some very funny baseball movies. Uh, they're all bad at the baseball part. Looking at you, Rookie of the Year. Um, so yeah, watch Shoresy and watch Letterkenny. Probably won't do a separate review of Letterkenny, though I am watching the last season of it finally. Yeah, and like support those comedies that are made local and support local artists and actors and directors and yeah, Indigenous First Nations people. That all that stuff's good. Shout out to the makers, producers, companies that made Letterkenny a thing, that made Shoresy a thing, and centered it around some of those stories and those people's real lived experiences. Cool stuff. All right. Peace out, y'all. Thanks for stopping by and checking out the channel. Like, subscribe. That helps people find me. Ultimately work with me, which is what I'm here for. And yeah, if there's something you want me to do a review of, drop down in the comments and let me know. Peace.